Welcome to the Four Worlds podcast from Tomorrow's World Today. We're diving into the latest in tech, science, and sustainability, from nature's mysteries in the world of inspiration to the hands-on crafts of creation, the bold breakthroughs of innovation, and the scaled-up wonders of production. This is your ticket to the stories shaping tomorrow. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Four Worlds podcast. We're looking forward to this one. Christopher Huang joins us from Brisk It. We have a good one coming for you, talking about smart grills just in time for that late summer, maybe early fall, where we're still able to get out there, enjoy the weather, and cook up something great. Christopher, thank you so much for joining us today. We're really happy to have you.
Thank you, Stephen, for having me. Happy to be on.
Yeah, we're looking forward to this one. So I came across Brisk It in CES, so we're talking January. So this is this is a long time coming. So we're super happy to have you. I just want to jump in it. Give us a general background. Explain to the people that may not know who Brisk It is, what Brisk It grills do, just a general idea to kind of kick this thing off.
Yes, definitely. So Brisk It, what Brisk It really is all about is we are a AI home kitchen company. We're really focused on leveraging AI and generative AI, especially agentic AI, to automate as much, or I don't even say as much. The vision is into the entire home kitchen and home cooking process. So that means everything from deciding what to eat, even figuring out, even learning what to eat, of course, to cooking it, but also, perhaps shopping, also post-cook, also, sharing with friends, the whole social aspect of it. All that is within our vision to really have a fully effortless and seamless home cooking experience.
So when we were out at CES in Las Vegas, what on showcase was the brisket grill. So what you're saying is there's a lot more to that. So anything that makes that cooking process or grocery shopping, like you said, a little easier, you kind of cover it all, right?
Yes, so we started off with grills. So just to give a quick background, founded in the 2020 and really focused initially on grills. And that continues to remain our primary product that's on the market. And the reason we start with grills is first off, I have two reasons really. So first off, I have a personal love of barbecue, eating barbecue particularly. And then second, actually, this is the engineer coming out to me, the product manager coming out to me, grilling and especially slow smoking is kind of frankly speaking, one of the scariest form of cooking. So I felt that if we could tackle smoking or grilling, then we kind of start off with the hardest, and we can really transfer a lot of that knowledge into other forms of home cooking.
I like the way you work. I'm kind of the same way. If I have tasks at hand, I'm covering the hard one first, so I can just kind of ease my way in and so when it does come to those brisket grills, you touched on it a little bit, but I'd love for you to dive into those problems or gaps that you saw in the traditional pellet grill market or the smoker process, the smoker market. What was that problem or those gaps that you saw yourself that made you want to get into making it smarter?
Okay, so I'll kind of start where, what initially kind of sparked the idea for brisket, and then kind of how it led into a larger discussion but a larger thought process on home cooking in general. So talking about barbecuing specifically. So around 2016, that's when the first Wi-Fi pellet grills started to come in. And pellet grills before that were already very revolutionary, especially with the invention of, or I shouldn't say invention, but the proliferation and the remarkable growth of Traeger around 2010, 2014. And that really, compared to, say, a traditional charcoal grill or offset grill, really brought convenience and ease that the grilling world has never seen before. The great part of pellet grills, though, is that it actually has a lot of input data through their temperatures, through the control electronics that they have, and also through the fact that they use electrical power to power an auger to power the pellets, which then controls the flame and the temperatures. The fact that they're able to control all this via electrical inputs means that you can also extract the inputs into a model or whatever like that. So I felt that when Wi-Fi came around 2016, it was an advantage. But by that time, if you look at any other industry, especially the Nest, right, the Nest Labs with the thermostat, by that time it was already already at their heyday, so to speak. So I really felt, hey, there was an improvement, but it's still 5 years behind, and it's really, I think, not taken full advantage of the ability and the fundamentals of a pellet grill. So that kind of leads me, okay, what if you can automate it? You should really, I should mention this. there is one thing also I did notice. Despite the convenience given by pellet grills, and this is also now reflected by our own data at Brisk It, most people still only barbecued. They barbecue more frequently, but they only barbecued still on special occasions. And there was still an intimidation factor. There was still a factor of, hey, what if I mess up? So I'm only going to cook things I'm familiar with, and I'm only going to do when I can clear out my weekend. So I thought, what if you could, but notice that, myself included, I would, my doctor says don't do it, but I would eat barbecue every day if I could. Yeah.
I think a lot of people may agree with you. Your blood pressure
course,
might not, but
yeah, depends depends what the industry they come from, but
right.
Yeah, the stomach says yes, the brain maybe says no, but
Understand.
but unfortunately, the schedule regardless says no, because we have other commitments, whether you're a dad or whether you're at work or whether just it's too intimidating. So I thought, really, why can we just target that pain point? And I'll close out with this. After I found this company, a lot of my friends, they ask, "Oh, Chris, you must really, really enjoy making barbecue." And I say, yes and no. And then, of course, it takes them a little bit back a bit, because people say, wait, you say, no, you're not passionate about your company's product? And I said, no, I didn't say that. I'm much more passionate about eating barbecue. And so that is what I want to do more of. So that is where Brisket comes in.
And I could almost guarantee that there are so many people just like you. They love eating barbecue, but they may not have that knack for it, or they're intimidated about that process because it's long. I mean, sometimes whatever you're smoking, it could take 16 hours. You're up, the crack of dawn, and you're smoking all day. So when you're in this early development stage, or trying to think of this idea, how did you envision this smart technology combined with these grills to appeal to those modern grillers?
Yeah, it's a great question. So this, there is a lot of, you could say they're tech-oriented, tech-savvy people that are willing to invest into gadgets to optimize their lifestyle. And optimize can mean many things. It can mean just making it more convenient, but actually I think it's not just convenience and time saving, but it's also optimizing the results. So you see a lot of, that's why a lot of people, they invest into things like an Oura ring, or they invest into the smart home system. It's not just to save time, but also to improve the results that they would have gotten, they would not have got without these technology. Peloton is another example. Mm-hmm. So what in terms of taking grilling to target these people with these kind of attitude and pain points, we really had to take a look at, okay, what do they really care about, right? They care about results, and they care about convenience. They care about having something that is very different, very high tech. But what really prevents them from having better results, better and more convenience time? And that really comes down to an entire, at first we thought, okay, that's automate the cooking, right? No, that's obvious, right? Okay, if you don't have to spend 16 hours sitting at a grill, that is the, you save a lot of time, right? But then that's just time saving. So then we thought, okay, how do we make the results better? Okay, if you can, in the same way that a Tesla self-driving car, gets you to your location without crashing, it doesn't just save you the effort, but also improves results. It reduces the chance of crashing because it has the safety sensors and everything. We want to improve the chance that the food comes out great. So we thought, okay, we have a lot of, for example, software that detects if you make a mistake, it'll correct for it. If you accidentally forget to come to the grill when the food's done cooking, it'll make sure that it doesn't overcook, right? So all these improve the results of the grill, in addition to saving time. Then we came to kind of what you saw at CS this year, which is, we saw at CS this we actually released last year, which is, okay, well, this is now the cooking aspect. We've improved results, we've saved time, but what really, and maybe I can ask you, what really is the beginning of, like you could say, the friction, the pain point, and some would even say the dread of a home cooked meal? It starts long before you actually fire up any stove or cooking. It's deciding what can you make. So that actually, if you people joke that, hey, that's people, couples, families don't fight over when they're sitting at the stove or the grill. They fight long before that. The worst question that everyone wants to hear is, what do you want to eat tonight, or what do you want to make tonight, right?
So how, bringing up those points, that brings up a great point. Who's doing the grocery shopping? What are we getting? What do we need? What do we need to buy? What are we having? How does Brisket help those people that have those questions or concerned even before firing up a grill?
Yeah, so this really comes to where I really emphasize on using agentic AI to really make this and solve this pain point. So, and I'll talk about now, and I'll also talk a little bit about the future. Unfortunately, can't share too much. So the agentic part is before, and if you look at other, cooking devices, not just grills, ovens, whatever, air fryers, they'll oftentimes have recipe books, right? And in those recipes, they have cooking programs. But those cooking programs are much more like basic cruise control. They have steps, they'll change the temperature, but there's no flexibility, there's no agency, hence the term agentic AI. There's no agency in those programs. So instead of saying, so the agentic AI that we're using right now is the idea that instead of having to look for a recipe, I'll make sure the recipe works and then send it to the grill, we use what we call our Vera AI, which is a generative AI too. You just say, make me a brisket, right? So then the AI knows this person's goal is to make a brisket. And then maybe it'll ask questions. Oh, this person only has this ingredients. This person likes this flavors. This person only has this much amount of time. And then it'll of course, create the program based on just a simple goal of making a brisket. So that is what we currently do. That's available on the market right now. Where we do want to proceed to that is something that's kind of one level above, or you can say two. I don't know how many levels, but it's another level of autonomy, of agency. And just kind of tease that a little bit, and then I know I'm talking a lot. I get passionate about a product.
But no, we love that. We love that. We love when people come on here and are passionate about what they're talking.
That's good. Good to know. Yeah. So just to kind of close that out. Yeah. So in terms of where we really want to go, what we'll be showing at CES is not just what if the user does not even have to say, make me a brisket. We know based on, and I can't say too much, but we know how they use the grill. We know what they like. We know, what's their flavors, how often they use the grill, all that stuff. What if in the same way that, Facebook and TikTok know what you like on their content platform, when Netflix knows what movies you like, we know this person eats at this time, eats at this frequency, eats this kind of duration of food for this many people, for this kind of flavors. He doesn't have to say, I want brisket. We know what he wants. We give it to him and automate the thing.
Interesting. Yeah. It's just kind of like, I know there's some things that you cannot say just yet, but if you think about machine learning in general, in very simple terms, the more data you have, the smarter it gets. So it kind of seems like that's what you're pointing to. The more, quote unquote, it knows what foods you like. Am I kind of on the right track without saying it?
Yes, definitely. We, I can say it may not be released to the public yet, but for sure, there's a lot of, reinforcement learning with, human feedback and fine tuning going along. Yeah.
Sure. So that's kind of a little bit about how you started, how, this idea and this product started. But as you get into that creation process, what did those original kind of prototypes look like? How did you prototype the unique control systems or the hardware? What was that creation process like?
Yes. So at first, I'll talk about the company history. At first, we thought, okay, my background is frankly software. It was not hardware. I used to be a software engineer and moved more and more to the product management side. So I thought, okay, why don't we just take the software, which is what I'm familiar with, and put it onto an existing grill? We explored this in 2020. And then what we realized is in order to, like I said, we talked about this type of user, modern griller, as you mentioned, you called it, there cannot be a traditional looking product. So, and also, frankly speaking, the control electronics was not adequate enough that we could find out there. It was not adequate enough to gather the data and drive the automation that we wanted with our products. So everything, to answer the question directly, everything that you see on our grills and all our future products, from the cloud infrastructure to the AI, to the electronics, of course, to the industrial design, is all designed and built in-house. So in terms of prototypes, of course, since partly because of being new to the industry, but also because we really wanted to make sure it was right, we created, I think R&D took about from 2020 to 2022, so 2 years to create our first grill.
Wow.
That we went through, I think, 13 physical, of course, in 3D design, we went through many prototype versions, but in terms of actually creating prototype, we did 13 revisions, so many different designs. We still have some of them in our warehouse. Yeah, but yeah, we really want something that's sleek, something that really evoke the brand. And actually, I'll end off with this to really emphasize how we really want to be differentiated in industrial design as well. We intentionally looked for industrial designers that did not have any grilling experience before. So actually, the designer that we end up using, a lot of experience really end up coming from automotive, actually.
Wow.
And this designer, very talented. if you ever looked at her resume, you would not think she designed grills. Right now, yeah, she was Apple, at device, Apple device. Of course, that was one of the things she worked on, and also military hardware too. Very recent, I noticed.
So when you're making that choice, how do you make that? I guess how do you make that decision? I'm fascinated by that. When you're making grills and making hardware for grills, how do you settle on someone with an automotive background? I find that fascinating.
Yeah. So first, like I said, we're looking at within the industry. Let's find an existing grill. Let's find some grill designers. If we can't find grill designer, let's look at someone who's designed appliances before, and then it's transferable. But then that, I think, there's a term out there, and you probably heard of it. Sustainable versus disruptive innovation, or continuous innovation. Sometimes people say for sustainable, and that feels safer. Feels less risky. Feels more confidence inspiring. But that what we realized, or I guess actually what I realized back at that time, is if we really want to do something different that doesn't just ride the coattails of existing big player, we have to take a risk and do something different. And yes, if we bought an existing grill, we probably would have gone to market. And there's plus and minuses, right? I'm not saying it's the right decision. I think it's the right decision, but if we used an existing grill model, then we would have gone to market when the grill market was at its peak, probably in early 2021. When Traeger had a huge stock, at a $35 or whatever price, the IPO very successfully. Don't look at the Traeger stock price right now. It's a little bit saddening, but yeah, that would have been an advantage. Speed, time to market, but we wanted to really do things right, so that's making everything custom.
Yeah, I think to your point, you want to do it right. You want something new, and you want to make sure it's your way. It's your vision, and you want to make sure it's exactly how you and your team want it to be. So when you're having those discussions, what were some of those quote unquote must-haves in that creation process that probably drove a lot of these discussions in the prototype process, the 12 versions or revisions that you had? What were those must-haves?
Yeah, so 4 things very clearly, and I'll go through them briefly, but they're all very critical. So first, of course, let's talk about technology. First is smart technology, Wi-Fi, and later on the agentic AI. If you look at our product lineup, we have no non-Wi-Fi grills, and none of our grills are defeatured software-wise versus another. In hardware-wise, yes, but there's different differentiation features, but not software-wise. Every grill is just as intelligent as the other, whether they're at the low price point or the high price point. Price point is the second thing. So price point, our current tagline, which will probably change next year, but our current tag slogan as a company is everyone's smart grill. And what does that mean? That doesn't mean, it means that everyone's able to have the time to grill. Doesn't matter how talented you are, how much time you have, you can make great home cooked barbecue. But as a part of being everyone's smart, which gives the story of accessibility, it means your AI, most advanced grill, high-tech grill, cannot cost $3,000, right? And only be available to the early adopters who's willing to blow that kind of money.
Right.
So that's why if you look at our grill prices, they're very, very competitive. So that, as a result, that kind of led into the third thing, which is we only put features in there that really improve the user experience. Back then, now, and continue to this day, which I'm a little bit surprised by, the innovation was very much continuous innovations. How did grills innovate? They added higher resolution screens. They added more thicker steel. They added bottle openers. They added a toolbox system, right? All great things, right? But what ended up happening first is, they don't really change the user experience of the grill, right? They don't change the food that comes off the grill. They don't make it any easier to get that great food. And second is they slowly creeped up in price. So we want to do the opposite for both of those things.
Interesting. So just speaking on all of those terms, including that price point and the technology that you put into it, what are some of those things that you would want to tell, let's say, traditionalists when it comes to grilling that are not used to all of this technology being implemented into what they think would be a common grill?
Yes, that is a challenge, right? And
Sure.
It's very good. It's a very and every industry has this, with enthusiasts. Sometimes it's the enthusiasts and the mainstream and the early adopters all have different opinions and needs, right? So in terms of grilling, it's called the grilling enthusiasts or traditionalists. Their traits is usually they want to, they're very talented at what they do, and they feel that to really get first, of course, they enjoy it's like enjoy the journey. It's it's like work plus very rewarding for them. And I get that feeling as well. And then secondly is, of course, they care about, they create the best barbecue, no questions about it. And they want what they're worried about is if you give something that's auto-made, that's kind of like almost like cheating. Does that mean that the people you give to, you're kind of deceiving them by giving them less quality barbecue and saying, oh, but it's easy, so you deal with it, right? You have poor results, and but it's easier, so it's worth it. Right? That's why early on I said, I didn't just say time save, and then our messaging, we say convenience, but we don't just say, oh, you save time, that's it. It's also how you control your results. So what would a traditional grill enthusiast want to do? Yeah, maybe he does not need help to know what temperature he needs to pull a brisket off, right? He doesn't need to know that. A novice needs to know, he doesn't need to know that. But what he may need help with is, and this is a feature that we have currently, he may want to know, okay, if I want a certain type of nutritional factor, right? I want one of my kids or one of my friends has a certain dietary restriction. I want to make sure that he's taken care of. So you can use the AI in that aspect. I'm very common. I'm not sure how familiar with grilling, but are you familiar with something called a stall?
I can't say that I am.
Okay, so this is something that is very common and can be very, feared by, or not feared, that's a strong term, but something like that by all grillers. So when you in slow meat, there's something called a stall, which is when the meat temperature stops to rise. So it seems like it's stuck. And the reason behind that is because the liquids inside of it, the collagen, etc., are evaporating and cooling the meat down as it's cooking. That is probably the number one cause of the scenario where people are sitting around hungry, at dinner, and they're all waiting for the meat to come up, but it's just not done cooking and the temperature's not coming up at all. That is the number one cause of that. So that impact doesn't matter how skilled you are. It's just it's a thermodynamics, basically.
Right. It's beyond. Excuse me. It's beyond our cooking capabilities.
Exactly. So our grills, it monitors for stalls, and then when it detects that, it can give recommendations. Hey, first of all, it notifies the user. So an enthusiast will know, okay, my meat's stalling now. I know what to do now. So, and I'm happy because I didn't notice it like 1 hour later, which means I basically lost an hour or 30 minutes of cooking. So those are examples of that. So that's why I know I'm going long here, but I'll close out. That's when we say everyone's smart grill, that doesn't mean novices and people with no time. It also means the enthusiasts. And that's why I always keep adding one more thing. I'll close out with this one. But I know I give long answers, but that's why, when an AI does the automation, it never takes control away from the user. It's as much as autonomous or as non-autonomous as you want it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chris, I promise you never have to apologize for passion on this podcast. So you're okay. Anything that you want to add, please feel free. And I guess staying on that topic of novices versus enthusiasts, what was some of that feedback that you got in those early testing that kind of shaped your final product and the final hardware?
Great. Yeah, that's a great question. So let's start with novices. So one of our first reviews that we ever got, so in 2022, when we had a very small just market test launch, was this person said he assembled the grill. Well, I guess got the grill delivered. He assembled the grill, and then for his first cook, he decided to cook a brisket, and then he ate it, and it tasted great. His family loved it. That was it. Very, frankly, mundane review. To him, it was mundane. He just thinks, okay, great grill. I had a great meal. Yeah. To us, when we saw that review, we were very, very ecstatic because I'm not sure if you've smoked briskets before, but if you look at even enthusiast forums, if you look at Reddit, if you look at Traeger forums, etc., smoking forums, you'll see that the brisket is can be a very deceptively, elusively difficult dish because it's very easy to overcook it. And if you undercook it, it's also very easy to undercook it, where it's very chewy and tough. So long story short, and I went through this rite of passage. Basically, it's a rite of passage for any smoker, barbecue backyard griller to burn or ruin your first 3 briskets or first 2 briskets. I know I did. Right. And these are like $100 pieces of meat, especially in 2021.
It's not cheap.
Yeah.
It's not cheap.
So this person wrote this review. Obviously I could tell he's a novice from the review, but he just did that. One of the most challenging dishes, did his first cook. He used the cooking automation, and then he ate it and tasted great, and then he went to bed. Right, that's all he did. He doesn't know what he did, but I wish I could reach out to him, but it's probably
right.
Years. But that to us was very, very
huge.
Yeah. So that's of course on the novice side. Then to quickly touch on the kind of more expert side, I'll be honest. In the beginning, the automation aspect has and continues to have resistance, skepticism from this type of user, right? And it makes sense, right? I'm also a car enthusiast, right? I was quite skeptical of self-driving cars
Sure.
before. Yeah. Now I'm very into self-driving cars. So it takes time. But what we did find is, first off, they appreciate the build quality. They appreciate the fact that our control at the time, which is now you start to see more common. By the time we were one of few only full color high resolution LCD controllers, and they appreciate our temperature stability. Right, our temperature stability is. We continue to test competitors. We still have the most stable temperature control algorithm. So they appreciate that. And of course, then as time went on, we started to notice, hey, they appreciate the fact that they're able to, the grill will go into a keep warm mode if they get too busy and they forget to take the food off when it's done cooking. They appreciate the fact that we let them know about stalls. We appreciate the fact that they appreciate the fact that they can remote ignite the grill and schedule ignitions and things like that. So yes, maybe they're not going full on, Tesla style full self cooking, but there's, like I said, it's everyone's smart grill. There's a lot of convenience features that make things just a little bit easier for them to achieve the results that they consistently do achieve.
Right, and I'm sure that was even both, like you said, reviews on both ends of the spectrum, a novice and an enthusiast. It's nice getting that feedback, and no matter how in-depth it is, as we heard with the novice feedback, but I'm sure it really did help shape this final design and really help you and your team move along.
Yes, absolutely, yes. And we continue to, both in terms of interviews and reviews, but also in terms of, and the great thing about AI is we get that continuous human feedback loop. So even the fact that they thumbs up a recipe or they launch a recipe or they reject the recipe, thumbs it down, that constantly tunes in real time, not just for our product in general, but also for their profile, for their preferences. And then as longer they use the grill, the more they use it, the more customized and hyper personalized to their experience it'll become.
Yeah, it's a smart grill. It is. So let's talk about some of that. What kind of, let's say, proprietary technologies or algorithms that are powering these AI systems that help manage temperatures, smoke, and even fuel automatically? What are some of those pieces of technology that you guys are dealing with?
Okay, I'll talk a little bit more about the traditional side and I'll go, of course, into our centerpiece, which is our AI. So the traditional side really is the temperature control algorithm. So that, and I should clarify, right these days, most Wi-Fi pellet grills that are above a certain price point are algorithm controlled. Now, there's different levels of, I guess you could say, intelligence in these different algorithms. Some is just and they call it PID algorithms. Some are just, they base it off of temperature and then a motor speed for the auger to feed pellets in. And it's a flat, it's a same logic for every scenario.
Right.
In our case, we once again really try to be adaptive. We call it adaptive or dynamic. So in the sense that if you're just trying to maintain temperature, it'll have certain logic to make sure it maintains it. If you jump from a low temperature to a high temperature, it will adjust to make sure that it speeds up. It doesn't use the same logic, and then adjust the logic to then increase the temperature as fast as possible without igniting the fire. Same thing with shutdown. Same thing with ignition, etc. That it's something that's unique to us. I guess I should. I guess I shouldn't say. I guess you could say it's unique, but I'm going to be surprised also if maybe there's other grills that do it as well.
Sure.
Yeah. But that is kind of where we kind of showcase that, hey, we always want to be adaptive, intelligent, even in something as simple as a temperature control algorithm. Now, going, of course, into something that's, of course, that's kind of our core technology, which is the AI algorithm component. So, of course, we have our own model. We have our own recommendation engine, and we build our own user images or profiles. A lot of people call them profiles, images, etc. And this technology, of course, is designed to not just accomplish, the automation, the user profile generation, the feedback loop that we currently do, but it's really designed to be transferable. So the great thing about this is, and I'll leave it at there because I can't. This is unfortunately as much as I have to share is this, technology where our AI engine that's automates the grill, that generates the recipes, generates the cooking programs, understands the user profile, adapts, fine tunes, etc. It's very transferable to beyond grills. So I think it's pretty obvious, to say that, we don't intend, we want to really expand this concept to the entire home kitchen, and grills is the first stop. And next up, you'll see at CES 2025 if you're there.
We love that. We love that. So let's shift from that technology and shift a little towards the user, because essentially that's what it comes down to. The user is very important in situations like this. How do you enhance that user experience? You talked about those data-driven cooking profiles, but also the mobile app. How are these enhancing that user experience?
Great question. So once again, we always use a feedback loop. You may use the term several times, a feedback loop, fine-tuning, reinforcement learning. We do that. That's an AI concept, but we also do it as people, as product managers as well. So what does that mean? That means we are not afraid, unlike traditional like appliance companies where they push an update, once every, a year or something like that. And when they push update, it's like a bug fix.
Mm-hmm.
We are constantly pushing updates multiple times. I guess multiple times a month, really. And yes,
Sure.
most of those are small changes, but we also push many new features. If you look at our app in 2020 or I guess 2022 versus our app now, the feature and capabilities are very, very different. So just to give an example, probe calibration. This is very, very mundane task. So sometimes when you put in a probe, it's, probes are temperature probes. And sometimes, they get out of calibration because just from wear and tear or whatever. We automate, instead of having to just manually touch it, we automate that. That did not exist when we first launched. That existed later on. Of course, the recipe AI generation, generative AI, which we launched in 2024, that did not exist when we launched in 2022, and then it exists in 2024. And then now it's much more powerful today than it is when it first came out. Those are just examples, but to really kind of underscore the philosophy, we're not afraid, because I think our users know that we're kind of a startup, we're newer, we're trying something different. They have a little bit more patience with us, to say the least. So in the same way so I think this is more like a Silicon Valley attitude where we don't mind trying new things with our users. And they don't, because they kind of trust that, we're not going to make their grill blow up or something like that, right? So, for example, the tone of our AI, sometimes it's going to be very straightforward. Sometimes it's going to be very complimentary. Maybe sometimes it'll be sarcastic, right? We try things out. We fine tune it. Maybe we tune it towards meat recipes more, make something more, safer or more, more risky, right? Yeah. And then some people say no. What are you doing? I like my recipe safe. And stop trying to put these crazy ingredients that I never tried on these dishes, right? So then if it's go too far, we tune it back. So that constant iteration is what allows us to really, really move quickly, especially on the software side.
I love that. It seems like, just based on our conversation, very user forward. You really take feedback into consideration. I think a lot of people would appreciate that. And I'm sure they have already.
And the great thing about software, hardware, of course, you have to just get it right and do it right, because you can't change it once it's out the door, right?
Right. You can't keep making that. You can't be updating the hardware.
Software, the great thing is, yes, of course, we want to do the interviews. We do, we have tons of documentation to define requirements, etc. But nothing beats user feedback. And so why not just see what certain users think? If they like it, roll it out to more users. If they don't, maybe pull it back a bit. And that's how, frankly, a lot of great software products are made.
Right. And so one of the most important parts of these processes is scalability. You're making this product. Give me some insight on your manufacturing or supply chain setup. What does that look like? Whether you're assembling in-house or partnering with third-party producers, how does that look for Brisk It?
Yeah, so we do use contract manufacturers. But we also have our own supply chain team. Actually, quality and manufacturing make up about a quarter of our headcount, actually. So in terms, to answer the first part of your question, which is on the manufacturing side, so obviously the designs are ours, industrial designs, and we go through prototyping to make sure it passes testing, and we test them rigorously, from fall damage to high temperature, all the things you would expect a grill that has basically a fire inside of it and it's going to get covered in grease. And we go through, even electromagnetic testing, to make sure when you touch a controller, the electrical current from your fingers doesn't cause a problem. Yeah, we test all those too. And of course, when appropriate, we also go through third-party certification, intertag, etc., Bluetooth, all that stuff. So that's I think all the expected things.
Yeah.
But what is I guess I'll say straightforward. Of course, we do manufacture in China, and China does have a mixed reputation, right, of of manufacturing, of quality, of of QA, of processes, of speed, and we need to make essentially the reason why a quarter of our headcount is manufacturing and QA, because we need to make sure we get the best parts of manufacturing in Asia and avoid the not so great parts of it. So what does that mean? Just to put it bluntly, we test our team when we run production. That team basically lives at the factory, and I visit there. Our CTO visits there to make sure, and they inspect every single grill that comes off the line, to make sure that they pass they don't,
Right.
the fact doesn't cheat us, basically. Yeah.
Right. So when it comes to addressing product quality, the safety standards, and all of the regulatory compliance, would you say that you and your team, it seems to be the case, is being hands-on something that's important to you and your team?
Absolutely, yes, and that's why all our engineers, we don't use third-party agencies. Unfortunately, we're startup. We cannot fund and capitalize our own factory.
Right.
Otherwise, we would. But things that we can, engineers, software engineers, industrial engineers, QA team, the designers, all in house. We tried some external, but it's one thing that really stood out to me. This is now come more to startup culture, which is we believe, and I believe personally, that in order for a startup to succeed, you're either on the bus or you're off the bus. So you cannot be half, right? So that's why we really try to keep things internal as much as possible.
Again, I'm users listening out there, or potentially future users. I think that's something that they would like to hear, and something that they really would appreciate. So when let's go into some of those prototypes and shipping models, like the Origin and the Argo. What were some of those production hurdles that you had to solve to get those on the shipping, scaling them, getting them ready to ship?
Definitely. So the biggest challenge, and this is, maybe you probably heard of a book called Good to Great, right? You made the analogy of the chicken and the egg, where the chicken, overnight, when the egg becomes a chicken, to everyone who watches it, it's a complete change. But to the chicken, right, he spent I don't know how much a chicken gestates for, but it spends a month or whatever working hard, growing, and no one ever saw it, right? So the chicken's breakfast is very different, right? So it's the same thing here. So in the beginning, especially in 2021, right, the grill market was on fire in a good way. So we were just small fish. We didn't have the capital to order 1 million units from the factory. So it was very difficult for us to stand out. Everyone was saying, "Oh, why you're just a small player? These guys are ordering hundreds of thousands of units every year. You just want to order. You can only afford to order 1,000. So why should you even pay attention to you, right?" So that was very much a challenge. But so we had to really convince them based on the fact, hey, demonstrate this is not just another OEM, ODM type of grill. This is something that's very different. And yes, we're small now, but if you look at our traction, we're in an industry that's frankly struggling. We are growing very rapidly, and actually, this happened maybe a few weeks ago. We're actually the best-selling smoker on Amazon at the moment.
Love that.
So,
congratulations!
Thank you. Yeah,
and congratulations.
Yeah. So, but talking about scaling, there's two ways to scale, right? There's two things we have to scale. First is the manufacturing side, and then second is the software side. Software, maybe it's not talked about as much, especially in the grilling world, because we don't want a situation where every user increases the cost of our AWS bill linearly, right? Then of course, it becomes really not sustainable. Yeah. So in that sense, the great thing is that as we get more users, the ability to first we get more data, we really learn, hey, this is how users really use the grill, and that's what that makes our changes. That allows us to make change both the hardware and software, but also on the production side. I guess the way to kind of summarize it is when we design, I guess the biggest decision that we made for scaling on the hardware side is what's it called, like an transferability of compatibility. Sorry, I'm listening to compatibility. So for example, when we make a controller, it's very important that we don't just that controller, which we spent many months and a lot of money developing to test to get certification for, is not just compatible with one model, which then when we update the next year is no longer up to date. So that's why a lot of our grills, the Argo, the Origin, they share the same components. So that was a scale decision. And I think this last thing you asked about was about kind of the manufacturing process, right? So just to quickly touch on that. So Argo is a great example. Argo was an exclusive grill for Walmart. So not only did they have to meet our standards, we had to meet their standards too. And believe me, long story short, they were very, very strict on this stuff. They pulled out their thermometer gun and shot every inch of the grill and said, if they saw any variation in they were like, no, we can't. You need to change this.
Yeah. And then there's also, was there the Sam's Club exclusive as well? What were those kind of?
Yes, that was the Argo grill. Sorry, I meant Walmart. But it's Sam's
That's
Club.
okay. Yeah, Sam's Club. I just wanted to clear that up. When you said Argo, it's like, wait, maybe I think that's a Sam's Club, but
yes,
I didn't want to be the one correcting you, the guy. But anyway, just jumping over those hurdles, another important part of this process. And you were kind of going in this direction. And as we wrap up this interview, how do you see Brisket evolving over the next 3 to 5 years?
Yes. So as I mentioned in the very beginning and probably hinted towards, our goal is to really have a fully automate the entire home cooking experience. That means all the different steps of a cook, but also all the different forms of a cook. The vision is that the entire home kitchen is powered by Brisket AI. And I think I'm very excited. So it's really a struggle not to share more, but because it is basically ready for release early next year. But we need to reveal it. We need to wait until CES to reveal it.
Gotta wait till January.
But give you a little bit of a preview. Our vision is that when it comes to home cooking, the user does not really have to think much anymore. They can really just focus on eating, and just enjoying good food, having that meets the nutrition requirements, meet their tastes great, meets their schedule. In the same way that, and this is maybe not the best, I need to work on this analogy. I'll work on it for CES 2026 when I give interviews.
There you go.
In the same way that a social media algorithm, you don't have to tell the social media algorithm, hey, I want to see dogs, right? I want to see cute dogs, right? It just knows. It's constantly feeding. You can scroll on it forever, right? Very unhealthy, but
right. We've all been there. Let's all be honest. We've all been there.
So my goal is that with a home cook, they'll be able to, just the fact that everything's automated, the fact that the recommendation engine knows what they like, what they don't like. They can constantly try new things. They don't have to worry about whether it's gonna come out tasting poorly or come out burnt or whatever. Constantly try new things. It meets nutrition requirements. It meets the dietary needs. And they never have to worry about it as a day-to-day item. Basically, the stress of home cooking is removed from the day-to-day life. That is the vision of Brisket.
And I think that's a great cliffhanger, something to get people excited for. So as we wrap this up, anything else that you want to add that we might have missed that you want to let people know?
No, I guess, if anyone wants to check out Brisket, our grills currently are available, on our website, on Amazon, as well as retailers such as Lowe's.com and Sam's Club. In terms of what we're going to do next beyond grills, can't say much, and just stay tuned for CES 2026 if you can.
Yes, everyone stay tuned. Chris, we're really looking forward to continue working with you. We're going to follow along as well, and really excited for the future of Brisket.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Stephen.
Absolutely. Once again, thanks again to Chris and Brisket for joining us today. And thank you all for listening. That's all the time we have. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Four Worlds Podcast. Until next time, you can catch up on the latest innovations shaping our world at tomorrowsworldtoday.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel.